Hi, it's Rob Arona with your weekly Torah message for times of Corona. This is your special Shavuot edition. Shavuot is also known as the Festival of Weeks, and it comes exactly 7 weeks after the second day of Passover. Thus, this holiday is the conclusion of the Passover festival, also known as the Spring Festival of Pilgrimage, and Shavuot is also the festival of ingathering of the spring harvest. And so it has great significance to people in the land of Israel and elsewhere who practice an agricultural living. The spring festivals are known as a symbol of redemption. We come out of the winter period when things are dark and grim and covered in ice and the plants seem dead in their dormant states. And we come to the spring when plants seem to come back to life and the animals come out of their hiding places and things return to normal. And in the readings for the spring holidays, we find signs of Messianic era and the redemptions therein. So because of that, it is a custom in many Jewish practices to read Megillat Ruth, the Book of Ruth, on the festival of Shavuot. Now, Ruth is a very fascinating book. It's not a long book, but it's really packed with important imagery. Ruth is a Moabite who marries an Israelite man, and the Israelite man dies very young and is childless. After she is widowed, she goes and lives with her mother-in-law, Naomi, who has lost both her sons to early death. Naomi tells Ruth and her sister-in-law to go back to their homelands, but Ruth says, no, your people are my people, your land is my land, and where you go, I will go. This is a sense of true belonging. And this gives great strength and power to people who are Jews by choice, people who come from other backgrounds and choose to become Jewish. And so this is the symbol of the Jew by choice. This can also give strength and comfort and power to queer people who feel isolated and rejected by communities. The communities who truly know what they're doing can welcome the isolated queer person in, and the queer person is then able to say, your people are my people, your congregation or your place or your city is my city, and where you go, I will go. This is a model that we have to live up to. Now there's some very interesting features when you consider who Ruth is and who her ultimate husband Boaz is. Boaz is a descendant of Judah, one of Jacob's sons. And of course, we are named Jews because of Judah. So let's take a look at their lineage. Ruth, as I said, is a Moabite. If we go back to the story of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, after those cities were destroyed, Lot and his two daughters flee to the mountains. And the two daughters, feeling that they and their father were left alone in the world, say to each other, let's get our father drunk and have children with him so that we can rebuild the world. And first the older daughter does this on one night, and then the younger daughter the second night. And they each get pregnant. The older daughter gives birth to Moab, the younger daughter gives the birth to Ammon. And so we have children of an incestuous relationship. Moab and Ammon are mamzerim, they are incestuous children. And so by halacha, they are prohibited forever into joining the Israelite community or the Jewish community. But there's an additional problem. In the book of Deuteronomy, the Moabites and the Ammonites attack the tail end of the Jewish people, of the Israelite people, as they are going through the wilderness, and attack the most tired, vulnerable, weakest of the community. And so God says that Jews can never marry Moabite or Ammonite people because of what they did to us in the wilderness. So we have not one, but two prohibitions against marrying Moabite and Ammonite people. Yet, Ruth is a Moabite and Boaz marries her. Now, let's take a look at Boaz's yichus. Judah had three sons, Onan, and Shelah. Marries Tamar, and God takes him early because he's evil. Onan is forced to marry Tamar in levirate marriage because had no children. Onan, being evil also, spills his seed rather than rebuilding his son's name, and God kills him also. Shelah is too young, so Judah never gives Tamar to Shelah in levirate marriage. Tamar, seeing that she'll never have a child through her legitimate inheritance, dresses up and then pretends to be, pretends to be a prostitute and entices Judah to have relations with her, and she bears a child. And in fact, she bears two children, twins. And then she tells Judah, when he accuses her of harlotry, that the father is the person who owns the staff and signet ring and cord that she took as a pledge for payment for the harlotress relationship. And Judah says, Tzadka mimeni, she is more righteous than I am, because he knew that he had promised her to Shelah in levirate marriage, and he didn't fulfill that promise. So he stayed with Tamar, but never had relations with her again, because he was her father-in-law. So yet again, an incestuous relationship. So theoretically, Judah's children with Tamar should be mamzerim. Yet here we have Boaz, who is a full-fledged Israelite, not a mamzer, and part of the community. So Boaz and Ruth marry, and their ultimate descendant is King David, who is considered a fantastic king in Israel, despite all of the problems that he has during his time period. The rabbis love King David. But God doesn't love King David, of course, and King David doesn't get to build the temple. His son Solomon ultimately builds the temple. But why is King David important? Because according to Jewish tradition, the Messiah is going to be a descendant of King David. If you believe in messianic redemption, then the Messiah will come from King David, which means that the Messiah is going to come from people who were born of parentage that was prohibited on both sides of the family tree. Now, what does this tell us? This tells us that if you're somebody like me who is transgender and queer besides, because I'm into women, not men, well, if you want to take a stam reading of the Torah, then maybe I'm violating some mitzvahs, and maybe I'm violating some halacha, some Jewish law in being me. But there is an overriding principle that I've talked about before, that saving a life transcends the other commandments. And in order to be me, to be a transgender person, I had to do that because I had to save my life. And the same thing is true for every other transgender person who transitions. And the same thing is true for every other LGBTQ plus person, or every other queer person, that is, who lives their true authentic self. that to force them to be somebody other than who they really are is to put their life in grave danger. And so to do that is, in fact, prohibited. And that also goes back to the prohibitions that we see in Parshat Kedoshim, such as not putting a stumbling block before the blind, and the requirement that we are to love our neighbors as ourselves. Now, during this corona crisis, we have seen many ridiculous statements from people, such as sacrifice the weak to save the strong, and things such as God created the corona pandemic so that we wouldn't have pride festivals and pride parades this summer. These are absolutely absurd, hateful statements that people are making. And of course, if we really look closely at the statistics, they tell a totally different story, but I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to throw stones or call names, but anyone who is intelligent can read the true story behind what the statistics say. So if you are somebody who is in an oppressed community, such as the queer community, the people of color, the immigrant, the underserved, the oppressed, the unhoused, take heart. Know that God is not punishing you with the coronavirus crisis. And it is a huge tragedy, in fact, a horrible sin that people say this kind of nonsense. We are commanded to love each other. We are commanded to take care of each other. We are commanded to heal the sick. And so anybody who says these hateful things is in fact the person who is sinning. And we pray that as we go into the Shavuot festival, that we find healing and rest and energy and redemption as we move into the summer months, and that we find a restoration in our world speedily in our days. And I wish you all a Chag Sameach, a beautiful festival, and a Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.